Welcome to today's deep dive, where we'll be looking at Bill Gates' Business at the Speed of Thought. Even though it was published back in 1999,
Yeah.
well before things like smartphones and the cloud and social media were everyday things,
Right.
this book still has so much to say about how businesses can win in the digital age.
You know, it really is remarkable how much Gates predicted
Yeah.
about what we're seeing today.
It's really kind of like he had a crystal ball or something.
Right.
We've been seeing all this stuff coming. But before we get into the really interesting specifics,
Sure.
let's start with the basic problem that Gates is addressing in this book.
Yeah, he kicks it off by talking about the challenge of information overload.
Okay.
You know, many companies were just drowning in data,
Right.
but they were struggling to actually use it effectively.
So kind of like having all the ingredients for a gourmet meal,
Yeah,
but no recipe to follow.
exactly.
So what is the recipe that Gates proposes? I've heard a lot about this digital nervous system concept,
Yeah,
but honestly, it's always sounded a bit abstract to me.
understandable.
Can you maybe break it down in a way that's more practical for businesses, today in 2025?
Absolutely. So think about your own nervous system, right?
Yeah.
It's constantly taking in information from your surroundings,
Yep.
processing it,
Right.
and then allowing you to react really quickly to any changes in your environment.
Right.
A digital nervous system for a business does the same thing.
Okay.
So it allows information to flow instantly across the company.
Right.
So everybody has a clear picture of what's happening,
Okay.
and they're able to make decisions based on those real-time insights,
Okay.
not just their gut feelings anymore.
Right. So it's not just about like throwing a bunch of technology
Yeah.
at the problem. What are some of the key things you have to do to actually build a digital nervous system that works?
Right. Well, one critical element is you have to break down these information silos. Okay.
Departments can't just be hoarding data,
Right.
and executives need access to that real-time information,
Okay.
not just, outdated reports.
Yeah.
Another key element is empowering employees at all levels to use the data
Correct.
to make decisions.
Mm.
Gates actually talks about this idea of managing with what he calls the force of facts,
Okay.
which really resonated with me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, force of facts, it makes me think of replacing guesswork with real evidence.
Exactly.
It sounds like a really powerful way to make decisions.
Right.
But I imagine it takes a big change in mindset for a lot of companies.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give a company to start implementing that kind of data-driven decision-making?
Well, I think one way is to implement tools that give everybody access to the relevant data.
Okay.
And then you have to train them on how to actually interpret and use it.
Right.
So, for example, a company could use a CRM system to track all their customer interactions,
Yeah.
right? And that would give everyone from
Sure.
sales to customer service
Yeah.
a single view of that customer journey.
Right.
Or they could use those data analytics dashboards to visualize their KPIs,
Okay.
which would help managers make more informed decisions about,
Right.
resource allocation, marketing campaigns, and product development.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I can see how having that shared understanding of the facts
Right.
can lead to more alignment within a company
Yeah.
and help them get things done more effectively. I know Gates actually uses a really interesting example of
Yeah.
a company that made the shift to a digital nervous system, General Motors. Apparently, they used to rely on
I know, it's crazy.
a really old-fashioned
It's a-
paper-based system for communication with all their dealerships.
I know, they were essentially flying blind when it came to inventory and sales trends and customer feedback.
Right.
It was a logistical nightmare.
So how did they go about changing that? Well, they implemented a digital system that gave them that real-time visibility into every part of their business. So they could track their inventory,
Okay.
analyze sales data, and even get that instant feedback from customers.
Wow.
It was a complete game changer.
Yeah.
It allowed them to manage with that force of facts we were talking about.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. And it wasn't just about efficiency.
No.
It was about agility.
Right.
The internet back in the late 90s was already changing things so much. And Gates saw that companies had to adapt really quickly.
Yeah.
Or they were going to get left behind.
Right.
He even used the term inflection rocket to describe how fast things were changing because of the internet.
I love that. Inflection rocket.
Yeah, so businesses had to completely rethink how they operate,
Yeah.
embrace e-commerce, and get comfortable with this constant change. He even called it the web lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So What did that mean for all those traditional business models?
Well, it meant a lot of them were going to be disrupted. With the rise of e-commerce, companies could connect directly with customers, and it cut out those traditional middlemen.
Right, like the distributors and the retailers.
Exactly.
So how did that change the game?
Well, I mean, think about companies like, E-Trade.
Oh, yeah.
They revolutionized stock trading by letting individuals just buy and sell stocks online without needing a broker.
Yeah, and the travel industry, too.
Exactly.
Those online booking platforms like Expedia and Travelocity basically forced traditional travel agents to reinvent themselves.
They had to.
So it wasn't just about eliminating the middleman.
Right. It was about
finding those new and better ways to create value for the customer.
Exactly.
So in this new digital world, customer service becomes absolutely essential.
Right.
Companies can't just rely on the old ways of doing things.
We can't.
They need to be amazing at providing exceptional customer service.
Yeah.
Use digital tools to personalize things and build strong relationships. Gates talks about this idea of touching your customers in the digital world. How do you think companies can actually do that?
That's great.
When so much of the interaction is online?
Well, the question, companies like Dell were already doing this really well back in the 90s.
Okay.
They were using the internet to provide that customized support, answer questions quickly, and just build a really loyal customer base.
Another good example is Marriott.
Yeah.
They use those digital tools to create personalized experiences for their hotel guests.
Right.
Let them book rooms, choose amenities, and get tailored recommendations.
Exactly.
So they weren't just making things convenient.
Right.
They were using those tools to try to anticipate their needs and create that more personalized experience.
Absolutely.
And of course, getting to market first in the digital age is a huge advantage.
Huge.
Gates talks about that in the book, with companies like Bradesco Bank in Brazil.
Yeah.
They were one of the first banks to launch a major commercial website in that country.
And that allowed them to capture a big chunk of the online banking market.
Yeah.
They understood that speed is key.
He also uses the example of Compaq.
Right.
They used an ERP system.
Yes.
An enterprise resource planning system. To really streamline their production cycle.
Yeah.
And get those computers out to market faster.
Absolutely.
Can you explain a little more about what an ERP system actually does?
Sure.
And how it fits into this idea of business at the speed of thought?
So an ERP system is basically a software platform that brings together all the core functions of a business, like finance, HR, manufacturing, supply chain management, all into a single system. So this allows for that seamless data flow between different departments, which lets everybody have a real-time view of what's happening and make decisions much more quickly. In Compaq's case, implementing an ERP system helped them to optimize their production, reduce errors, and get products out the door faster, which, as you know, in the tech world is everything.
So we've seen how building that digital nervous system can help companies to make better decisions, improve their customer service, and speed up their time to market.
Absolutely.
But there's another key piece of the puzzle here, which is managing knowledge for competitive advantage.
Yes, and this is where things get really interesting. Gates says that companies need to become what he calls learning organizations, So they're constantly capturing information, analyzing it to improve their products, their processes, and their strategies. One of the most crucial aspects of this is turning bad news into good.
Turning bad news into good. What do you think he means by that?
Well, it's about embracing failure as a chance to learn and get better. Instead of just sweeping problems under the rug, companies need to create a culture where mistakes and negative feedback are seen as valuable data. So every complaint, every bug report, all of that, it's a signal that something needs to be fixed.
So it's about turning lemons into lemonade.
Exactly.
And I know Gates uses the example of Microsoft's own missteps with the internet. Back in the early days.
Yeah.
They were really slow to kind of get on board with the whole internet thing.
They were.
And they faced a lot of criticism.
Right.
But instead of ignoring all that bad news,
yeah,
they used it to fuel a rapid transformation.
Exactly. They used their internal email system and their collaboration tools to have a company-wide conversation about the internet.
Wow.
And that open dialogue allowed them to quickly adapt, develop new products, and ultimately become a leader in the internet space.
That's fascinating.
It really is.
So it shows the power of having a strong digital nervous system in place.
Right.
that lets you process information quickly,
Yeah.
identify problems, and then mobilize your resources to address those problems.
Exactly.
Now, I know Gates also highlights another company
Yes.
that excelled at using those digital tools to capture and analyze customer feedback.
Yeah.
Promise Hotels. What did they do that was so innovative?
They built a system that tracked customer complaints as they were happening,
Okay.
like identifying patterns,
Right.
and it allowed employees to solve problems right there on the spot. So not only did this improve customer satisfaction, it also gave them really valuable insights into things that they needed to improve.
So they were essentially using data
They were.
to create a more responsive
Yes.
and customer-centric organization.
Exactly.
But they didn't stop there. They actually used what's called data mining to uncover those hidden patterns and predict customer behavior. Can you tell us a little bit about data mining and what it can do for businesses today?
Sure. So data mining is using statistics and algorithms to analyze these big data sets and uncover those hidden patterns and trends that would be really tough to see without it. It's like having a digital detective working behind the scenes, helping you understand your data better. In Promis's case, it let them personalize experiences, anticipate needs, and even see problems before they became big issues.
And it's not just limited to customer-facing businesses.
No, not at all.
I know Gates talks about Coca-Cola.
Yes.
They implemented a knowledge management system called Inform to actually improve the quality of thinking throughout their whole organization.
Exactly.
What was the goal there?
The goal was to capture those best practices and share them across the whole company so they could leverage all that employee wisdom, improve decision-making, and create a more innovative and agile culture.
So it's really going beyond just making data available. It's about creating a culture of continuous learning.
Exactly.
We've talked about digital nervous systems. We've talked about customer service and this knowledge management. All crucial elements of business at the speed of thought.
Absolutely.
But there's one more piece that Gates really emphasizes, and that's the importance of taking risks.
Absolutely. He argues that, those big wins often come from taking big risks. He points to Boeing as a prime example. They made a massive investment in using digital information to design and build the 777 aircraft. And it paid off big time.
And it wasn't just about using computers for the engineering,
No. They completely changed how they worked with suppliers and managed that whole production process. They had a digital mock-up of the 777, which allowed engineers all over the world to work together in a virtual space.
That's amazing.
It reduced errors, increased efficiency, and they had a very successful launch.
So it's a great example of how you can use these digital tools to manage complexity and enable that innovation. But taking risks can be scary, especially in the business world.
It can be.
Gates also talks about the pharmaceutical industry. Companies like ICOS were using digital tools to speed up scientific breakthroughs. But those breakthroughs often come with a huge price tag.
They do.
And no guarantee of success.
That's the nature of innovation, particularly in a field like pharmaceuticals. You have to be willing to put a lot of resources into R&D, knowing that some of those projects will fail.
So it's kind of a high-stakes game.
It is.
But the potential rewards are enormous.
And Gates makes the point that in today's world, taking those calculated risks isn't just a nice to have anymore, it's a necessity.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part.
We have.
We talked about building digital nervous systems, the importance of customer service and knowledge management, and the need to embrace risk-taking. But Gates doesn't stop there. He actually paints a very exciting vision for the future.
He does.
Where this digital information flow will touch every part of our lives. Healthcare, government, education, you name it. What do you think is the most compelling aspect
That's a good question.
of his vision for the future?
I think it's that he believes technology can be a powerful force for good. Empowering people, breaking down barriers, creating opportunities. But he also acknowledges the potential downsides. Like widening the gap between those who have access to technology and those who don't.
So we need to make sure that the benefits are shared by everybody.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of education, Gates seems particularly passionate
He does.
about how technology can change the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the ways
he talks about
he sees it impacting education?
these things called connected learning communities.
Connected learning communities?
Where, students and teachers have access to this vast network of resources.
Right.
And they can collaborate from anywhere.
Right.
Imagine classrooms where students can connect with peers from other countries, access information from, the world's top experts,
right,
and learn at their own pace using these personalized tools.
That's an amazing vision.
Yeah.
And he highlights some schools that were already trying these things back in the 90s, like Highdown School in the UK.
Yes.
They created a network that served not just the students, but the whole community.
That's right.
It's a great example of how we can use technology to build a more connected and informed society.
Exactly.
And it's not just in developed countries either.
No.
He talks about Melbourne, Australia. They did this one-to-one computer program, giving each student their own PC.
It was really transformative.
Yeah.
They could use technology for everything.
So it's incredible to think about the possibilities when everyone has access to that power.
It really is.
It can level the playing field and open up so many new ways of learning.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about the students.
No.
Technology can also empower teachers.
Right. It lets them personalize instruction, cater to different learning styles, and create these more engaging and interactive experiences.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about how businesses can use this digital information to their advantage.
Right.
But what about the rest of us?
Right.
How can we apply the principles of business at the speed of thought?
That's the question.
To our own work in our own lives.
Right.
Even though the book focuses mainly on businesses. I mean, those core principles can apply to anything.
They can.
Like the idea of building our own personal digital nervous system.
Exactly. We can all use technology to manage information better.
Prioritize, stay connected, and expand our knowledge.
So think about the tools you use every day, like email, calendar apps, task managers, online learning platforms.
All part of that personal digital nervous system.
Yeah.
The better you use them, the more effective you'll be.
It's like having a personal assistant.
It is.
But powered by technology.
Exactly.
And just like businesses have to be agile, individuals need to be able to adapt too.
We do.
Because things change so quickly.
Right.
The things that were valuable yesterday might not be so valuable tomorrow.
Exactly.
So we need to be lifelong learners.
We do.
Gates's vision for the future is definitely optimistic.
It is.
He sees technology as this force for good, empowering individuals and creating a more connected world.
Yeah.
But he also recognizes the potential downsides, right?
He does. Things like information overload, privacy concerns,
the
possibility of things being misused. So we can't just embrace technology blindly.
We can't.
We need to be thoughtful about it.
We do.
Make sure we're using it ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely.
This deep dive has already been so insightful.
It has.
We've covered so much ground already, from building these digital nervous systems to rethinking customer service to how technology can impact society as a whole.
It's been a great discussion.
It really has. And Bates's ideas are as relevant today
more so, I think,
as they were back when he wrote the book.
I agree.
If you want to learn more about these concepts and how you can use them in your own life, I highly recommend reading Business at the Speed of Thought.
It's a great book.
It's packed with these really practical insights and examples.
Absolutely. And one thing that really resonated with me was his emphasis on continuous learning.
Okay, yeah.
The digital landscape is always changing, so we have to stay curious.
We do.
Keep learning and be able to adapt. We can't get complacent.
Right. We have to be lifelong learners.
We do.
Always seeking out new information.
Absolutely.
Another key takeaway for me was the importance of collaboration.
Yes.
In this interconnected world, we can't do it alone.
We can't.
We have to work together, share ideas, and use each other's strengths.
Exactly.
And technology can be a great tool for that.
It can. It connects us all.
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities.
It really is.
So what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with today?
I hope they come away feeling empowered.
Okay.
That technology is this tool we can use to build a better future for ourselves and for the world, but we need to use it wisely, ethically, and with a vision.
Embrace the power of technology.
Yes.
Use it responsibly and never stop learning.
Well said. One thing that really hit me when reading Gates's book
Yeah.
was how much he stressed that human side of digital transformation. It's not just about having the right tech, it's about changing mindsets and building a culture that really embraces innovation.
Makes sense, because you could have the most amazing system,
You could.
but if people don't want to use it or adapt to a new way of working,
Yeah.
it's useless.
Yeah.
And Gates actually talks a lot about leadership driving this change.
He does. He argues the CEO needs to be a true champion for change,
Right.
not just somebody cheering from the sideline.
Yeah.
They have to understand the technology,
Okay.
how it'll impact things,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to explain their vision for how to use it to achieve the company goals.
But it sounds like the CEO can't just like hand this off to IT
They can't.
and hope for the best.
No. They need to be shaping that digital strategy,
Right.
and they have to create that culture where innovation and learning are welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I found it interesting that Gates also talks about simplicity in tech.
Okay.
He says companies should focus on systems that are easy to use and easy to keep running, avoiding all that unnecessary complication.
Yeah. I mean, we've all dealt with those clunky software programs.
We have.
Where it's just like, ugh, what is going on here?
It kills productivity.
Yeah.
He uses the example of the human nervous system.
Right.
Incredibly complex, but
Right.
it just works without us even thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's what a business's digital nervous system should be like.
Okay.
Powerful,
Okay.
but simple and intuitive.
So how do you get that balance of
Yeah.
power and usability?
It starts with really understanding what you're trying to do with the tech.
Okay.
What problem are you solving?
Right.
What do your users need?
Sure.
Once you have that vision, you can start looking at tech
Right.
and pick the best fit.
Okay.
And remember, technology's always changing.
Right.
What's cool today might be old news tomorrow.
Yeah.
So design your systems to be flexible so you can adapt.
I know Gates uses the example of McDonald's in the book. They struggled to integrate all their different IT systems
It's a mess.
over the years because they kept adding new tech without a plan
Right.
and ended up with this jumble of incompatible systems.
They had so many redundant systems and no integration.
Right.
It was so hard to get a clear picture and react to the market.
So what's the lesson there?
You need a roadmap for your digital transformation.
Okay.
Don't just implement things randomly.
Right.
You need a strategy for the whole organization.
Right.
And as we said, strong leadership
Mm.
to guide things and make sure all that tech spending aligns with your goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing companies have to decide
Right.
is whether to build their own systems or buy them off the shelf.
Both have pros and cons.
Yeah.
Building your own gives you more control.
Okay.
And you can customize.
Right.
But it's time-consuming,
Right.
expensive, and risky.
Whereas buying ready-made software.
It's faster.
Yeah.
And usually cheaper. But you might have to compromise on some features.
Right.
Gates usually suggests using commercial software whenever you can,
Okay.
and only build your own if it gives you a real edge over the competition.
Right. He also talks about standardization, right?
Yes. He says using a limited set of tech across the company can really cut costs.
Okay.
And simplify things. Think about email.
Yeah.
Back in the day, companies had tons of different email systems.
Oh, yeah, it was a nightmare.
Nobody could talk to each other.
Right. Right.
Standardizing on one platform, like Microsoft Exchange,
Okay.
made communication so much smoother. People
Right.
could work together better.
Right.
And it eased the burden on IT. It's about making a more unified digital environment.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the big picture of digital transformation.
They have.
But how do these principles apply to specific areas of a business?
Well, Gates actually spends a lot of time in the book looking at that very question.
Okay.
Manufacturing, customer service, knowledge management, strategic planning.
Right.
He gives tons of examples of how companies are using digital tools
Okay.
to change how they work.
Let's start with manufacturing. How are companies using tech to improve things there?
One big area is automation.
Okay.
Companies are using robots and automated systems
Mm-hmm.
to do tasks that people used to do.
Right. But that also makes people worry about jobs disappearing.
It's a valid concern.
Right.
As tech gets better, companies and governments need to
Mhm.
think about the impact on workers
Mm-hmm.
and invest in retraining and education to help people adapt.
Absolutely. What are some other ways tech is being used in manufacturing?
Another big one is data analytics.
Okay.
Companies are using sensors and data collection
Right.
to get real-time info from the factory floor
Okay.
so they can find bottlenecks,
Right.
optimize schedules, and improve quality.
That sounds like it could lead to big improvements in how efficient they are.
It definitely can. Gates talks about Step-On Company, a chemical manufacturer that used PCs to create a really responsive production system.
Right.
They collected data from the factory floor in real time so they could watch production, spot problems, and make adjustments on the fly. Improved quality, less waste, more output.
Okay. That's a great example of how data can help make decisions in real time.
Right.
Any other examples?
Saturn Corporation is another one.
Oh, yeah.
Launched by General Motors back in the 80s, focused on innovation.
Right.
They built their whole process around digital information.
Wow.
Made it super automated and flexible. PCs controlled everything.
So they were ahead of their time.
They were. Allowed them to make great cars with lots of customization, all at a competitive price. They were also pioneers in using digital tools to empower their workers, giving them access to info and the power to make decisions right there on the shop floor.
Okay, so a more engaged and productive workforce then.
Exactly. Contributed to their great reputation for quality and customer satisfaction.
Too bad they didn't make it.
I know, it's a shame.
Yeah. Well, we talked earlier about how important customer service is in this digital age.
We did.
So what are some of the ways tech is being used to improve that?
Self-service is a big one.
Right.
Give customers online tools so they can find answers themselves, track orders, and fix problems without calling customer service.
Yeah, you see that everywhere these days.
You do?
Online knowledge bases, chat bots,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of ways to get help without talking to a person.
It's all about giving customers the power to get what they need quickly and easily.
But not everyone wants to figure things out on their own, right?
No, some people still want to talk to a human.
Yeah.
Especially for complicated issues.
So it's finding that balance of self-service and having human help when you need it.
Right. Companies also need to be responsive.
Okay.
Customers want fast answers.
Yeah.
And quick solutions.
Right.
So things like live chat and social media are being used to give real-time support.
It's interesting how social media has become so crucial for customer service.
It has.
You can't just ignore complaints on Twitter anymore.
You can't.
You have to be ready to respond.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool.
Right.
Connect with customers, build relationships.
Right.
But it can also backfire if you're not careful.
Right. Gates actually points to Dell and Marriott as examples of companies that were doing customer service well back in the 90s. Dell was using the internet to give customers personalized support, track orders, check warranty status, all that online.
And Marriott was using digital tools to personalize the hotel stay.
Right.
So guests could book rooms, pick amenities, get recommendations based on what they like.
Okay, so both companies really understood that in the digital age,
they did.
Customer service is more than just a department.
It is.
It's a core part of how you do business.
Exactly. And tech plays a huge role in that.
Right. Now, we touched on knowledge management earlier.
Yeah.
But how are companies actually using tech to capture and share knowledge within their organizations?
One key tool is knowledge management software.
Okay.
Where you can keep all your important info documents, policies, procedures, best practices, lessons learned.
So it's like a big digital library.
It is.
Where employees can find everything they need to do their jobs well.
Exactly.
Really helpful for big organizations with people all over the place.
Absolutely.
I know Gates talked about Coca-Cola's system, Inform, as a good example.
Yeah, it was their way of capturing and sharing best practices company-wide.
Right.
Gave employees a ton of information on everything.
Right.
From marketing to manufacturing.
Yeah.
And it was a place to collaborate, share ideas.
Ask questions, learn from each other.
So it's breaking down those silos.
It is.
And building a more collaborative culture.
Exactly. And it's not just about storing information, it's about making it easy to find.
Right.
Companies are using search engines and things like semantic analysis.
Okay.
So people can quickly find what they need.
So having lots of info isn't enough.
It's not.
You have to make sure it's actually helpful and easy to get to.
Exactly. And it takes constant work.
Right.
Companies need to keep looking at their systems and make sure they're serving their employees well.
Okay. We've covered manufacturing, customer service, knowledge management. So let's talk about how tech is changing strategic planning.
It's more important than ever these days.
Yeah.
Things change so fast, companies have to adapt to stay ahead.
So what are some of the ways companies are using tech to improve their strategic planning?
Data analytics is a big one.
Using data mining and other analytical tools to find trends and insights
Right.
that can help guide those decisions.
It's like having a crystal ball.
It
It
is.
shows you the future.
Data analytics can help companies see changes coming,
Right.
find new opportunities, and make better choices about where to put their resources.
But you need some expertise to use it properly, right?
You do. You need people who know how to work with data,
Right.
collect it, analyze it, understand what it means.
And ask the right questions.
Absolutely. Having a ton of data isn't enough.
Right.
You have to know what to do with it.
Right. And collaboration is important too, right?
Yes. Strategic planning isn't a solo thing anymore.
Right. It's like a team sport.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Companies are using tech to help different departments work together,
Okay.
online tools to share ideas,
Right.
brainstorm, and develop plans.
It makes sense to get input from lots of different viewpoints.
It does.
Can lead to more innovative and well-rounded plans.
Exactly. And it helps get everyone on board.
Right.
When people feel involved,
Right.
they're more likely to support the plan.
So tech can be really powerful in bringing people together
It can.
and aligning them around a common goal.
Absolutely.
So Gates's vision is all about empowering people and organizations using tech to achieve more. He sees digital information transforming healthcare, education, government, even the military. How does he see tech impacting those areas?
Let's start with healthcare. He thinks tech could completely revolutionize how we get and deliver care.
Okay.
Imagine a world where patients have access to their own medical records.
Okay.
They can talk to their doctors online and use tech to track their health. Yeah, we're seeing some of that already.
Right, with telehealth and wearable trackers and all that.
Exactly. He thinks this is just the start.
Right.
Tech can make healthcare better and more efficient, lower costs, and improve outcomes for patients.
What about education?
He's a big believer in tech's power to personalize learning, empower students, and create a more engaging experience.
Right.
He talks about those connected learning communities where students and teachers have all these digital resources and can collaborate from anywhere.
Okay, so learning that's more personalized and interactive.
Exactly. He also sees huge potential in online learning, making education more affordable and accessible.
Right.
And he's excited about adaptive learning technologies, which can tailor instruction to each student's needs.
Right, so he's really passionate about making good education available to everybody.
He is. He believes education is key to solving so many of the world's problems.
Right.
And tech is a way to make that happen.
Now, what about government? How does he see tech impacting how government works?
He thinks it can make government more efficient, more transparent, and more accountable. Imagine citizens accessing services online,
Right.
tracking legislation, and talking directly to their elected officials.
So a more open and accessible government then?
Exactly.
Right.
It could empower citizens
Right.
and make government more responsive to what people need.
Okay. And even the military.
Even the military. He talks about using digital information to understand what's happening,
Right.
improve communication, and make faster decisions.
Okay.
It's like a digital battlefield where commanders have real-time info
Right.
and can act on the latest intelligence. He also sees tech changing how soldiers are trained and how new weapons and defenses are developed.
So tech is shaping the future of warfare.
It is.
But it also raises some ethical questions, right?
It does, like about autonomous weapon systems and relying too much on tech for military decisions.
Important questions to consider.
Very important.
As tech keeps advancing.
Okay.
So while Gates is optimistic about tech's potential, he also recognizes the possible downsides.
Absolutely. He says we need to use tech ethically and responsibly. Think about things like privacy, security, and the potential for misuse.
Right. We can't just assume tech will automatically make the world better.
We can't.
We need to use it in a way that aligns with our values.
Exactly.
Right.
He calls for governments, businesses, and individuals to work together to harness tech's power for good, to create a more just and sustainable future.
That's a call to action we should all pay attention to.
Absolutely.
You know, it's pretty amazing how many of Gates' predictions from back then actually came true.
Right. It's like he had a time machine.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I think what's most striking is that he was able to see those big trends, you know, even when the technology was still so new.
Yeah, he wasn't just looking at the gadgets themselves.
Right.
He was thinking about how tech would change how we live and work and interact with each other.
And he nailed it. I mean, the internet has changed everything.
Everything.
From how we shop and talk to each other
Right.
to how we learn and get health care.
It really has.
It's hard to imagine life without it now.
He saw the power of digital information to connect people, to empower individuals,
Yeah.
to build a more informed society. And he was absolutely right.
But like with anything powerful, there are always challenges.
Right.
Right. Potential downsides to all this tech.
Absolutely.
And Gates talks about that too.
He does. He talks about information overload, the loss of privacy, the potential for technology to be used for bad things.
Right.
Even the digital divide,
Right.
making sure everyone has access.
It's a good reminder that technology isn't a magic solution.
Right.
It can be used for good or bad.
It's up to us.
It's up to us to figure out how to use it
Right.
to make sure it benefits everyone.
Totally.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from this book is that digital transformation isn't a one-time thing.
No.
It's a constant process.
It is. You have to keep adapting and learning and experimenting.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
Exactly. And it needs strong leadership.
Absolutely. CEOs, business leaders, they have to be the ones pushing for change.
They have to champion these new technologies and create a culture of innovation.
Right.
And they can't forget about the ethical side of things either.
Right. Making sure their actions match their values.
Right.
Yeah.
Tech can be a powerful force for good, but it can also be misused.
Yeah.
It's up to leaders to set the example
Right.
and make sure it's used responsibly.
Well, this deep dive into business at the speed of thought has been incredibly insightful.
It has been fascinating.
We've talked about so much.
Yeah.
Building those digital nervous systems,
Right.
rethinking customer service, the impact of technology on our world.
And those ideas are still so relevant today.
They are. So if you're interested in learning more and figuring out how to apply these ideas to your own work, your own life,
Right.
I highly recommend reading Business at the Speed of Thought.
It's full of great insights and examples. One thing that really stuck with me was Gates's focus on continuous learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Things are always changing in the digital world.
Right.
So we have to stay curious, keep learning, and be ready to adapt.
That's so important.
Another key takeaway was the importance of collaboration.
Yes.
We can't do great things alone anymore.
We can't. We need each other.
We have to work together, share ideas, help each other.
And tech can help us do that.
Right, connecting people all over the world to work towards something better.
It's amazing to think about.
It really is. So what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from this deep dive?
I want them to feel empowered,
Okay.
to see that tech can be a tool to build a better future for themselves and for everyone.
Right.
But they have to use it wisely,
Right.
ethically, and with a purpose.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
Embrace the power of technology, use it for good, and never stop learning.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into business at the speed of thought.
It's been a pleasure.
I'll see you next time.